Okay, let's dive into a concept with a really powerful name, the alchemy of failure. It's all built on this one simple but honestly pretty profound idea that can completely change how you look at setbacks and even your biggest goals. So, we all know the usual story, right? It's like you have success over here, that's the finish line. You made it, goal achieved. And then, way over on the other side of the universe, you've got failure, the dead end, game over. They're treated as total opposites. You either win or you lose. That's pretty much it. But what if that whole way of thinking is just wrong? The idea behind this whole explainer kicks off with this really disruptive statement. Failure is not the opposite of success. Just kind of let that marinate for a second. It completely challenges the foundation of how we normally track our progress.
So our first job here is to really get what that means. We got to break apart that old traditional idea of them being opposites.
And the takeaway here is huge. See, if failure isn't the opposite of success, it means they're not two different endings to the same story. Failure isn't some final destination you end up at instead of success. It's something else entirely. It's definitely not the end of the road. Which, of course, brings us to the big question, right? If they're not opposites, then what in the world are they? How do they actually fit together? This is where the really cool part of the idea starts to take shape.
And that brings us to this new way of looking at it, this brilliant reframing of failure, not as a result, but as an ingredient.
And there it is. That's the second half of that powerful quote. Failure is the raw material of success. So think about that. It's not the thing you're desperately trying to avoid. It's the very stuff you need to even get started.
Let's just be super clear about what raw material means. Think of it like wood for a carpenter or clay for a potter. It's the basic, essential stuff you have to have before you can even begin to make the final thing. It's unprocessed, it might look messy, but it is absolutely fundamental. And this is where the title of our explainer just clicks perfectly into place. In this new mindset, failure is like the common metal, lead. By itself, it doesn't seem all that valuable. But in the hands of an alchemist, that's you, with the right process, it can be transformed into gold, which of course represents success.
So how do we actually do this? It's one thing to have a cool metaphor, but how do we actually perform this alchemy in real life?
Well, it really boils down to a clear, repeatable process. We can think of it as the three main steps to making this transformation happen. Okay, first up, you actually have to experience the failure. You can't be afraid to try something and not quite get there. That's you just collecting your raw material. Then step two, and this is so important, you analyze it. What went wrong? Hey, what actually went right? This isn't about blaming yourself, it's about pulling out the data. And finally, step three, you iterate and adapt. You take what you learned and you pour it into your next try, making it that much stronger and smarter.
So why go through all this trouble to change how we think? I mean, what's the real payoff for looking at things this way in our jobs, our creative projects, or just our lives?
Oh, the benefits are massive. For starters, it seriously reduces the fear of trying something new, because the worst-case scenario isn't a dead end anymore, it's just more raw material for next time. Second, you build real resilience, not just telling yourself to be tough, but actually knowing from experience that you can take a hit, learn from it, and come back stronger. And finally, it fuels innovation, because real breakthroughs almost never happen on the first attempt. They're built on the lessons from a whole bunch of failures.
So, let's end with this question. If you stop seeing your past mistakes and your setbacks as these final negative things, and instead you start seeing them as this valuable pile of raw material just sitting there, what incredible things could you decide to build with it, starting today?